Okay, I've been doing this for 10 years. I understand this stuff intimately. That is a little tiny iron meteorite, and it is iron. You see it? It's an iron meteorite, and there's blood still in this because this was a lung. Lungs and hearts turn into iron meteorites because of the blood, FeO2, FeO3. You see it? Now, a bigger one would smelt more and become more and more iron. The hotter you get, the more of the volatile organic compounds go away. And if it got up to, say, 2,000 degrees or so in that area coming through, you'd only have iron left. And that's what happened to one, and I will show it to you. Now, I have this is an iron, but it shows where it had the blood, and this is it's a lung. I mean, it's a lung. That's all there is to it. And I can show all these things in a microscope. I'm going to show all these things in a microscope. It's going to be a very long video. I know I've already done the video, and I'm just doing this for an introduction. But it is very, very serious. And all of this stuff in space is alive. And I have meteorites here that are loaded with blood. We're going to look at this in a microscope and see the blood. All right, you see up there? Hold on one sec. Well, you're going to see the whole thing. If you stick around, you're going to see it. If you don't, you don't. That's all I can say. All right, because this is going to be a very, very serious discussion of how our universe is constructed. And I mean serious. Okay, this is Anton Petrov, and he's going to be talking about what they did, the experiments in space, to be sure that, could something live out there or not? And then they also inspected asteroids here on Earth and meteorites. I have them here saturated with blood in my shop. Meteorites. I just showed, I think, the iron meteorite. I have others, which I'm going to show, and I'm going to show you so much detail that proves that literally everything in space has a biological origin. You stay watching and you will find out. All right, it's going to be long, but you'll find out pretty quick that I'm on the right track. Now, don't forget, I didn't do this half-assed here. This is DNA tests, 3 PCR DNA tests from certified lab, doing it in the most professional manner available, with all these, and I don't know how they do all this stuff, but it takes quite a while, and it's it's very professional done. And there was 3 samples, and they came back with human mitochondrial DNA. And that's all I had it tested for, was 2 sequences in the mitochondrial DNA that proves it's human, just exactly like us, Homo sapien. Only from the mother's side is all I had tested for. Now, that doesn't mean the rest of the stuff isn't there. I don't know what's there. But I didn't actually do the actual test. I sent the stuff off and had it tested. And I have the things here that show what I had tested. And here's one of them. One's just too gigantic to show. This is a lung from a human being. That's a human lung. And any anatomist will tell you that anyway. And this is how I got into the fascia. You see that fascia coating that lung? Well, this is actually pleura. Pleura is exactly like fascia, only it's much more durable. It's like a heavy-duty rubber bag. It's a hefty bag. And a lot of them just have, this is a bone. All right, and this is, here, let me get a little light. All right, that's a bone. And that's the fascia on the bone. I'm going to put this in a microscope in a minute, but that's a bone. This is all mud fossil stuff. And you'll be able to see a little bits of the bone around the outside edge. But in the center is where you have the ferritin and, all of the marrow and the heavy metally hydrocarbon black, bone black they call it. All right, now I have new species. And not only one, but we have the no-toes. I discovered these right here in Connecticut. All this stuff is right here on my property. Almost everything I will show you is goose. The goose head. You see the feathers in there? This is not a joke. This is not a lark. This is not silly. This is our history. And I believe it all came from some gigantic flood at one time. See how flat one side is? See how flat that is? That died laying like this. And the neck came down like this and across and snapped. That is where the neck is, right there. All right? If you take a second to look and slow down with life, you will see all of the things we have missed that have been just sitting at our feet. You know, at our feet. Like this foot. That's a foot. There's zero question about that. That is exactly the place where the blood runs in the front of our foot. That is where the fibula sits on the side of our foot. That is where the tibia cradles in the back here. And we have these gushing blood all over. Now, talking about space debris. Hold on one second. All right, I had 8 CAT scans done by Jesse Grant and Associates, the best people you could ever imagine, and they can see things that nobody can see. Now, and they are, I think, probably the best in the world. They do all the top, they scan engines and all kinds of things. And I started with them early in their time, and they were very, very helpful, and they were dedicated to helping me. And at that time, I was using Windows software. I have recently gone to, well, not recently, quite a few years ago, I went to Linux, so I really can't play the CAD scans much anymore. Or I could, but I just haven't jumped back into it. But this is years ago when I first did this. I'm going to just play this, and it'll show a few shots. And it's, you know, they're completely certified now. This was as I was having them DNA tested and the anatomist and everything. You see that? Look at this. You see that? That's the apical tuft at the tip of a finger. Here's one right here. They're made just like this. And they sit right at the tip of the finger. We have the biggest apical tuft of any creature on the face of the planet. Even gorillas don't have as big of an apical tuft as ours. Very interesting stuff. But anyway, I'm just going to play this, and you'll see a couple of, well, you'll see what you see. All right, this is the CAT scan of, all right, I want to just talk about this. You see this here? And you see that there? They all have this. These are the tendons, and, you know, they come down on the side to hold it. I don't think they're the blood vessels. Now, this is where the bone wraps are, oops, and you have like where bone goes to bone here. But these are important to understand. And you're going to see these in all of the fingers, because you have to come out here and grab a hold of them. And then there's little, well, I'll show you here, hold on. You see that? That's this fingertip right here. You see it? That's this fingertip. Now, they come down, and then they lock in right here in these tabs. And this is what holds your fingers so that they can come and move around. And there's some very interesting, you see that color right there? That I find in tendon antithesis areas. You see there's a little bit there? Anyway, there's so much to discover here. It's so interesting. And it's just, I am cut off. I'm completely shut off. Totally isolated. So somebody's going to have to help me. All right, here goes. The 3D image of the tip of that finger that has the fingernail showing, and this is the end towards the body. You know, the funny thing is, they all have one dark one and one light one, which always to me indicates vein blood versus artery blood. Vein blood is always black. Now, are they coming down one side and coming back the other side? And it might be, I don't know. I believe they call it the proximal end, and the other end is the furthest away from the body, the tip. Now, I believe this is the bone. I have an anatomical specialist who's going to be looking at this, a structural guy that does autopsies, and very, very, very good at this stuff. He'll know. Gil Headley, he verified every single word that I am saying. Gil Headley's the best in the world, too, and he's an autopsy specialist, owns his own school, teaches all over the world. One of the nicest people I've ever done any interactions with. All right, these shots show the areolar tissue. Now, areolar tissue is between the surface and the basement layer. There's a areolar layer, which, all right, this is what I discovered. The areolar area is really what's called interstitium now. I called it areolar, and I think they did too at one time. And it is these fluid-filled bags that are all around the outside of the tissues, and they give you the flexibility so everything can move around and come back. When you get old like me, it doesn't come back so good, but they're on balls and straps, and this is what I discovered, and this is the guide I was working with. Hold on, let me go back here a second. All right, here we go. All right, these shots show the areolar tissue. Now, areolar tissue is between the surface and the basement layer. There's a areolar layer, which areolar means holy. It's got a lot of holes in it and a lot of voids. And that is the squishy little layer that's on top of your skin. The skin is right on the outside. You got these little holy spots, and then you've got the basement layer underneath. And that's what's called areolar tissue. And we can see as you scan up through here where these things are. And you can see it's areolar tissue, and it's all... Well, I'm not going to go too much deeper into that. But you can see the blood supplies? This is, you know, there was no, it was all tested, and it was all checked, and it was all verified. And I have so much of this stuff. Here's another one that was eroded down to where, that's what's called a distal phalanges bone silhouette. Remember I showed you the areolar, the apical tuft. This is it right here. And that would have been on the tip of this distal phalanges. And that is where your blood supply comes in, the vein and artery. And this is a gigantic human hand. Gigantic. I took this out of the ground, and that's where this fingertip came from, the one I showed you before. It came from this. I have knuckles. I have all kinds of things from this. And I have feet from it, too. And here, watch. Here's, oh, this baby weighs 1,000,000 pounds. Remember I showed you those two little spots on the other one? I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but if you look carefully, these are the two same spots that were on that other finger. This is the toe. This is a toe from that same creature. And you see how it has all these little areolar holes? That's the areolar tissue. I discovered this. And Gil and I worked on it together. And this is where the tendon latches in on this. And this is the bottom of that big toe. And this we'll look at the microscope as well. Might as well leave it right there. We'll look at it now. All right, this is the huge hand. And I showed you the fingertip, and this is actually the toe, and this is in the microscope. Now, what's very cool about this is that I can vary the light and actually see the different types of minerals here. You see the ones that are lit brighter than others? We get to a point where you can actually see gold particles and things. The ones that emit the brightest light off of there have different metallic properties, and you find them saturated in the blood. It's always in the blood because the blood is the source of metals in your body. Now, what you're looking here is just blood, and that's there. I don't know, it's a blood vessel or whatever. Now I'm going to put a little moisture on there, and you're going to see a very distinct change. Well, first of all, before I put the moisture on, let's go right down to the surface and look pretty close here. Hold on, I got to turn the light down a little bit, get crazy. We'll look at it wet and we'll look at it dry. All right, here it is. Now this is dry. And let's move it around and see if we can find something else here. That's a pretty good shot at how the blood changes as it comes out. Now, hold on, let me see if I can get a little nice clean shot here. Alright, that's about as good as it's going to get. Alright, these, whenever you see different colors, it means you have different minerals, you have different metals, you have different molecules, because they emit different radiation back. This is a bloody area. Now, as I said, when it's wet, it's entirely different. This is red blood. And you'll see it'll turn pretty red. Hold on, I'm going to get a little moisture and give it about 30 seconds or a minute to soak in. Hold on. All right, now here it is a little wet. And you have to really play around with the light to catch all the extreme details. Because as you bring it up, you see little things that you don't normally see, like these little holes and things. You say, well, what the hell's going on there? Well, these are blood vessels. And then you're going to see patterns start to show up. And you're going to see different minerals start to appear, different colors. And then as you get brighter and brighter, you get into your blood and all the other stuff that, like this is red blood coming out of here. All right? Now, this is oxidized blood. It's not in the heavy red condition. It's, you know how blood dries out. That's basically what it boils down to. And it appears it's coming out of these little structures. There's a lot to examine here. There's a ton to examine. This is by no means even close to figured out here. So my point is there's a lot to do. Why don't we just do it? You see that piece right there? Watch as I turn the light down. I bet you that's gold. Yep. The first ones to glow appear to be the gold. I have some here that glow like you, and it's always in the blood. I have some here that's just saturated with gold. Anyway, and again, you find the gold in the blood. That's what you see, veins of gold. They're not kidding. All right, this is still that big toe, and we're on the bottom, like on the pads of the bottom. And where you hit pads, see that? Look at that, blood vessel. Let's go down inside this blood vessel. Watch this. You see right down there? One of those is a vein and one's the artery. And they feed out to the tissues that surround this area here. Now, and then you get into this. Everything in the body and the fascia and so forth has this sort of a look to it. You see this right here? That's a very good representation of what fascia looks like. All right, and we saw it on the lung, very, very similar on the lung. Wait, here's the lung right here. I'm going to put it right on top of the lung. Here's what the lung looks like. You see it? Not much difference. And here's the bloody spot on the lung. You see that? That's all bloody tissues coming out of that lung. This is no problem whatsoever to test. None. Zero. It is literally fresh. I had one here that bled all over. Now, this is the bottom. Again, this is the grip skin area of the bottom. It's a tough, tough area. Let's go to the top of this monster. See if we see anything different. Yeah, see, this is a little bit different. This is the skin. See that? That's the skin. And there's another, look at that blood vessel. I mean, you can't, there's not an anatomist on the face of planet Earth can dispute this. None. It's not even close to disputable. Look at that baby. Wow. I got one here that shot out some wacko looking thing. And that might be something, I didn't even know that was there. That's, because the other one came out like in a corkscrew. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is right there. Wow. That's pretty interesting. because I always wondered about this. I don't know what ever happened to it. But that obviously is a blood vessel, and that's growing out of there. Now that is interesting. Seeing this other one. Okay, I believe I showed you the no-toes. I'm not even sure I did now, to be perfectly honest with you. But I know you've seen the fabric. And this is the fabric. And this also is the same, identical as this. Only this is obviously bigger. And it is somewhat cooked. And we're going to talk about the cooking in a second. And you see where the blood came out from here, which is exactly where it's supposed to. That's the arterial side. And the blood came out from here exactly where it's supposed to, which is the arterial side. And the tips are identical. The hook, the little hook at the end, the vein areas are identical where they should be, and they're not blown out, you see? They're here, but they're not blown out. Same thing here. The arterial side blows out. Veins have clamps on them. Now, you see the tips? You see that little hook on the end? You see that little hook? That's exactly, I mean, these are the same, these are identical, same fingertips from giant, I believe, humans. I don't have the DNA on it, but they look like human. Now, one of them is terrestrial, and I believe this came through space. And I believe this is saturated with red blood. And the only reason it's red and exploded out of here was it had to have been wet when it entered our atmosphere. And it exploded from boiling off inside of here, being a cooked process. Boom! Exploding. Not like this one, leaking out and congealing. Totally different situation. This exploded. And I've looked at this in a good microscope. I have a very serious microscope. I've looked at the blood in this, and it's blood. And they can look at it anytime they want. This is available. I'm not hiding anything. Haven't hidden anything from anybody. And nobody will allow me to be seen. And I'm telling you, they don't allow me to be seen. I am crushed. That's why I'm asking for someone to step up and do the right thing. And help this out and get this started. Get us looking into the right world. This is walking around in circles. It's absolute insanity. 5 years ago, I was talking about Comet 67P. They did the research on it. They knew it this 5 years ago. And this, I don't know whether they're just doing it to keep getting their money, or they just really are that lacking in the knowledge of what they're looking at. I can't believe it. I really honestly, it's very, very distressing to live in this world now. And to have all these experts just ignore everything that's reality. It's just very, very hard. I mean, Yale told me that's just a rock. As a matter of fact, I even had a middle school teacher the other day. She said, "Oh, my students are talking about your stuff, and it upsets me because it's not peer reviewed." I said, "Well, you guys won't look at it." She said, "Well, it's just rocks." I said, unbelievable. And if you're thinking I'm kidding about getting locked out of the system, Mary Schweitzer, a wonderful researcher, dedicated to truth, discovered soft tissues in T-Rex cells 10 years ago. And she went on on 60 Minutes and showed this, and they crushed her, destroyed her. She's still done. This is 10 years ago. And the last I saw of her, there was an article saying, "I don't care what they think about me." And she's going on her own. Because they will destroy you. They absolutely destroy you. And that's what happened to me. That's what happened to her. And once you get destroyed, you get put in that bucket that you can never get out of. Look at this, 9 years ago.
Something about dinosaurs that captures the imagination.
She did this 9 years ago. And they destroyed her, absolutely destroyed her. And she has never come off the ground since. And I know I've seen her floating around here and there trying to get back into it, but I think she's been pushed out to the side and trying to form some external group. They won't communicate with me. I tried to get into there too, but nobody wants to touch Roger. He's on the outside so far that there's just nobody that's willing to reach this far out as I am. Now here it is, my Mary Schweitzer. Science magazine. I don't care what they say about me. She's staring down at the critics because they will not let her off the ground. She's still a teacher, I think. Let's see, what does she say here? It's a rocky start to a week during which Schweitzer plans to crisscross vast swaths of private property looking for outcrops. I have all this stuff right here. I have it right. I have new species. I have new species. And they won't, no one will communicate with me, not a single university, because of my past pushing out. They're just afraid, exactly because of what happened to her. You see that? That's an iron meteorite. And why is it iron? Well, it's iron because it came through our atmosphere and smelted. And what is smelting, Roger? Smelting is where you take iron ore, which is blood, literally it's blood, and you cook off all the volatiles and you end up with the heavy metals, and that is it. And that is a lung. That is a lung. That is a lung. You can find blood. I've looked and I've seen places where there is absolutely no question there's blood. If you drilled into these little holes where you have the red showing up, which is the arterial blood, just like the arterial blood here, you will be able to get an example from that, and you could extract, you could tell what kind of a creature it came from. You see that? That's blood. There's blood over in here, everywhere. There's all over there's little bloody spots. Now, that one is turned into a lot of solid iron. This one has turned into iron. It's a lung too, and this is a meteorite, and it is also smelted, and it has a lot of blood in this one. But it's an iron meteorite, and it came through. You see it? It came through space, and it smelted, and is a heavy concentration of iron, very heavy. It's an iron meteorite. Now, we're going to look at this in the microscope, and I'll show you the blood, and I'll show you the blood vessels and everything that came out of this. I have another one here, which is another body part that is saturated with blood that came through space. I show them to you. I have this stuff. If somebody will come and look at it, there's no question what I'm saying is true. If it is examined, then, and if it's not true, then I'll be a fool. But at this point, I see nothing but fools everywhere I look. Not a single one will address it because they know they're going to be known as fools. But they will now fully be known as fools because they have refused to accept reality. In my mind, that's the bottom line now. That's not just a one-off. You see that? That's vein blood. That's artery blood. You see it? See the red? You see the black? This was either a heart or a lung. I suspect it was a heart because there's not enough holes in it to be a lung. You see all these different colors? These different crystallizations? That is because those are different metals. Inside your blood, it's loaded with transition metals. And how can you say that, Roger? Well, I can show you a heart that opalized instead of turned into iron. Let's take a look at that. And then I will show you the colors of transition metals, which are the things that your blood is saturated with. All right, you see all those colors? Every one of those colors represents a transition metal. Now, some of them have bonded with other ones to make special colors, like these hues of different colors. You see how many different colors there is? Now, you see how they're all congregated here, all the different colors in the middle, and this has just a solid block of red in the middle. This is blood. This is inside of your heart. This heart was like this, laying like this. So the heavy metals, which the heavier they are, the harder they fall to the bottom. Now, the lighter things drift to the top. So the metals, this obviously was laying flat like that, and this was on top. Now, all of these different colors are like the heartstrings, the ventricles, all of the different blood vessels and so forth. So we know these are transition metals. We know these flow through your blood, and they are the things that pick up and deliver things in your blood. But that's another story which we will go down in another day. Alright, I know I'm getting a little long in this video. People don't seem to like long videos. And this is that DNA tested lung. And this one gushed blood. Literally blood ran out on my counter. Just a fact. Now, this is a lung, and that is a lung. And the lobes of the lung are right there. Now, this one has no pleura on it. The pleura got away from it. How that happened, I don't know. But we're down to the lobes of the lung. This is the coating of the outside of the pleura of the lung. I actually have one here that's got a lung, just like this, and half of it, the pleura is off, and the other half of the pleura is on. I'm going to go find that thing and show it to you. But then we're going to go into a couple of quick microscope shots showing the different fabric. We know what the fabrics are like now. All right, you should have an understanding of that. And if I can show you that this fabric is virtually identical to all the other fabrics that are on life, and that blood is virtually identical to all the other blood that's on life, and then I can show you that this cooked one has enough similarity to this that we can make the deduction that they are from similar creatures, the same creature, only one's a little bigger than the other. And this, if you understand the way things smelt and cook, the only possible way this could have happened is for this to have come through, like with a blowtorch, long distance, just searing this and heating it so hot that the blood that was in here that was wet exploded. That's the only way this could happen. And the only way I could see that happen is coming through space. There's no burned marks here. There's no burn marks. There's scorch marks. Extreme heat, no burn. I also have a lung around here somewhere that is an iron lung. It's around here somewhere. And I think I showed that before. I'm not going to bother. But it's saturated with blood too. It's iron. I could stick it to the magnet and blip, it'll pull right up. All right, I never like to make statements without supporting them. That is a lung. That's an iron lung. And you say, well, how can you say that, Roger? Well, I understand what lungs are, and that is iron, and that is iron lung. And this is a lung, not iron. It has nothing to do with iron. This one came through space saturated with blood. You saw the metals. Blood is literally almost entirely iron. It's not entirely, no, that's just a silly statement. There's a ton of iron compared to the rest of the metals that are in your body. That's the thing that transfers oxygen. And when it heats up, coming through space, because it's such a small object, it heated up just enough to, say, get to 1800 degrees. And at that point, all of the volatile organic compounds, the cheap stuff, burns off. And you end up with the metals. And you end up with iron. You get an iron meteorite. And that's the only way that this can happen. And when you see this in the microscope, there's no question what it is. I showed you what blood vessels look like. And when you see this, you're going to say, that's a blood vessel. And you're going to say it, but not a single educated person will. Okay, I believe we saw the blood in the toes and all the fingers and all the other stuff. And it's exactly the same as that. No difference whatsoever. Now, let me see if I can home in a little better on there. Now, let's look a little different place. Here is the tissue. The same tissue as all of them have. All right, you see the little fabric in there? See it? And then over here the blood. You see that? That's a blood vessel. I mean, who could possibly have missed this? There's blood coming out of there. And it is what it is. And here's another bloody area here. That is where one of the veins, the arteries on the side blew out. I showed this very clearly, and there is the tissue, the same tissue they all have on them. There it is right there. They call that feldspar. It's not feldspar, it is the tissue of life. All right, now, that one there is this one here, the terrestrial. All right, now we're going to look at the one that came through space, which is this one. All right, remember I said it's blanched off? Well, I'm going to have to adjust things. Give me a minute. Now, this is DNA certified human, and it still has the fingerprints on it and the fingernail. You can very, very easily see the bone. And I have shown this fabric in the microscope, and it is the same as all the other fabric. It's this kind of fabric right here. We'll see this again in the microscope. And inside is what they call basalt or igneous or metamorphic or whatever they want to call it. Sometimes you get things like this. This is still a body part. This was a body part. We'll look at the microscope. But the exterior has completely eroded away. And you get them in that condition every now and then. And sometimes they'll actually end up turning into metal. That's still the blood right there. That was a toe. And I know these things, and when I'm telling you what it is what I tell you what it is, because I understand what I'm looking at, just as that is a fingertip. And that's the blood that gushes out of the veins, the artery side of the fingertip. And in the microscope, you can see the vein and the artery. And I showed you the lung before. You see this? That's a lung that the pleura has partially eroded. Watch this. When I put more water on here, it'll show up. You'll still be able to see the blood. You see the red? I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me get a little. You need a good light, and you need some moisture. You see that? That's the pleura of the lung folded back. That's the inside of the lung. Remember I showed you the other one? The inside was all coated with blood, and the other one was completely coated with the fabric. This one has half and half. And they all pretty much, I believe, died in a flood, flat as a pancake like that. And a saltwater flood, and the salt waters invaded the chemistry, the pleura and the fascia and the interstitium, which coats every single thing in your body, your muscles, your organs, your body. See, there's the red blood is right there. We'll be able to see all this stuff in the microscope. Now, we'll look at it in a minute. But the salt waters protected it and preserved it. And then it must have been there for a long time. And they invade. It's called a nucleophilic invasion. And they go in, they stabilize. They turn all these things solid. Solid, the rocks. Everybody's always looked at them and said, oh, it's just a rock. No, it is not just a rock. It is literally a body part. And they separate along these fascia planes. When I originally, and like this bone, same thing, identical. And they are absolute flawless reproductions. Well, not reproductions. They are the original turned stable. That's all it is. And what happens is the molecules invade in here. Salt is an extremely invasive molecule. It allows things to separate and reattach. And what they do is they find particles that want to work with them, and they hook together. And then it must have dried out, and the salts had to be washed out of here. Otherwise, the salt would continue to deteriorate this. And we've looked at the salt deterioration and how, and I showed the other day how a lung like this was taken out of, and I mean it was bloody, absolute blood gushing out of it. As a matter of fact, I'll show it to you. But within a week or two, it was just dust. That's the difference between salt and what we have here. My conditions here preserve things like they were just absolutely flawless. I mean, I have things here that are just beyond belief. And new species and everything here. Right here. I showed these over and over and over. This is a new species called, I call it notos. And that is where the blood runs in the front. That's vein blood. That's also vein blood. This is where the fibia, tibia and the fibia. This is the other side. That's right there is where the bone was. All right, that comes down. That's what this is. And these are notos. The toes are inside here. And you see the wrapping of the fabric? You see that? It almost looks like it's got a medallion on the front of the damn thing. But that fabric is what wraps all of these things. It's called tunica. The ancients called it tunica. And if you look at this bone right here, you can see it. All right, you see this here, that triangle? I don't know if you will be able to see it or not. I can see it. But that they wrap around, and they actually have a seam. I've seen some of them almost look like they were sewed. I originally thought they were, but they're not. And I have them. I have so many things that are like this that we'll look in the microscope, but you're going to see the fabric of life. They always called it feldspar. There's nothing but fabric that coats these rocks. And I'll show you what feldspar is, and it is fascia. Just like I showed you, like it will be on this rock right here. You see all those little white particles? There's going to be all that little white, and the same stuff was on the lung. And then when you get inside, you have the muscles and the meat and the organs. Now, I have a chart that shows you start with clay and it goes all the way up to limestone. The clay is the outer flesh of your body. Then it goes into what's called marl, which is organs and bones and stuff. And then all the way up till you get to the limestone, which is, you end up with a really tough stuff. This is selenite. And that is a transition zone. See it? It's a transition zone within a tendon. This was tendon at one time from a giant creature. And these are the fabric and the fiber mineralization that's in these abrupt transitions. You see it? That's an abrupt transition. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? All right, anyway. A lot to look at. I mean, there's a whole new science here, literally. I'm not kidding you. It's a whole new science. Well, I'm not going to bother showing you anymore. Just so much to show that I could go on for hours, and sometimes I do. Well, let's just put one foot in front of the other. See where we go. All right, here's the chart I was talking about, and I didn't make this up, and I don't know who did, but it is very, very significant. And mud and mudstone is the clay, the fleshy, red, muscly stuff, clay. All right, and that is the really fleshy stuff. Then you get slightly into, the marly area, which is your organs and your muscles and all that, the tendons all mixed together. And then it starts to get more and more and more towards the limestone. And as I showed you before, the limestone, like Devil's Tower is a limestone creature's foot. I'm sorry, it's limestone. And those hex fibers are tendon fibrils. And this can be absolutely 100% proven now. There is no reason that it can't be tested now. I've been laughed at for 10 years, and I'm going to tell you right now, as before I said I was getting a little heart palpitations. Well, every day I wake up knowing that I'm in a combat zone. And I've lost 10 years of my life, even within my own family. So don't tell me that this is not an easy thing in order. It was kind of fun. I got to be honest with you. It's been a very, very interesting 10 years. But I got to tell you something else. It's been damn hard. And my wife has never seen one of my videos. Not a single person in my family would never. We can't talk about anything anymore. I've literally lost 10 years of my family interaction because they just refused, and now they know it's true. I know they know it's true, and it's just upsetting. People find this very upsetting. I like the truth. This is and it is, and now I'm starting to get upset again. Just the way it works, buddy. If you want to have truth, you're going to be in for a little bit of a ride, my friend. I really did a lot of work on this. I mean, this is what sandstone has in it for these different silicon, calcium, magnesium, iron, all that. And you can see what sand contains, mud and limestone. These are the different structural components of your body, basically. And we've been looking into silicon. Look at this silicon. It's very, very, very dense. Very dense. All right, but anyway, And in the sandstone, there's a lot of silicon. Now, mud, your fleshy stuff, doesn't have a lot of silicon. Limestone doesn't have a lot of silicon. But in your grip skin sand, you have sand. And I've analyzed all of this, and I understand, like the calcium, see, these are bony areas. Up in the limestone, you have your calcium, and then your limestone has a lot of your calcium. This is CaCO3, as I showed you before, in that other one, is limestone. So, there's a lot to look at, but I have looked at it, and I understand it, and I would love to engage with somebody. But I've been just laughed at and called a fool since I started this. And it's frustrating as hell. I studied the comets, the meteorites. I have them here. I have meteorites here. I've looked at them. I've studied them. They have exact same chemistry as this. The ferrous materials, which are in your blood, hydrocarbons, which are in your blood, calcium, sodium, silicon, all fully understood. That is from Comet 67P, 100% organic. They know now it's organic, and not only that, the anatomy is undeniable. Okay, I followed this from the beginning. This was the Rosetta mission by the European Space Agency. The Philae lander landed on here, took samples, and I showed you those ferrous and all that stuff from that Philae lander. It's a Romeo and Juliet, I think they called the particles they tested. This is 100% undeniable anatomy. That is a tendon anchor, the antithesis of it. This is literally blood cells. This is muscle fibers. These bundles are muscle fibers. You go to any anatomist, and these are the tendon fibrils that come off. That is an abrupt transition where they break. And I have them here, the same thing. I have virtually identical same thing here. Now, this was tested, and the chemistry is 100% organic. The comas that shoot out of here shoot out from blood vessels. There's a zillion little blood vessels around here that lead up to here. And when the sun hits it just the right way into them, they actually cook and the gases come out. I'll show you. You see it? This one here, there must be a big vein or an artery that this one hit, so it's really gushing out of here. Over here, these are all the little ones that come around. Everything has to be fed with blood. So, and you see how they're shooting out at the angle that the blood vessel is pointed towards. That's why they're going in all different. It's not just something blowing off of the surface. It is being boiled out of here. And they tested this, and it is gas grill sirloin steak particles minus the oxygen. I'm telling you, it is just like welding fumes from metals. Metals are in your blood. This is what's coming out of here. The astronauts say they go in space, they come back in, they take their suits off, and it smells like steak, like burnt steak. And the reason is there's no oxygen out here to speak of. So when it burns off of here, instead of flames shooting out of here, you have these very extremely volatile gases, which are almost like you're welding. It's almost identical to welding, because you are literally electrically, because you're hitting it with electrons, you're electrically invading the tissue, and that's what causes it to blow off of here. Now, if there was enough oxygen, you'd get flames. No oxygen, but 100% biology. All right, these are the transition metal complexes. They're everywhere in the blood. I think I just showed you the heart. I have them in all my specimens, different colored places, and they can be in any body part. This is a toe, and it has all kinds of different transition metals in here because of the watery solution it was found in, and the pH, if it was acidic or salty, and then what organs were it near? Was it near the kidneys or livers or hearts or lungs, or because that's where your chemistry is in those organs. Really is the places that really puts out a lot of chemistry. And this right here is tendon, and you see this I love this thing. Becky Doria sent me this. Thank you, Becky. This is fabulous. It's a abrupt transition. You see this little straight across there? And that abrupt transition is in a tendon. And this is the mineralization of the tendon. But my point is that this was probably in an extremely aggressive area that ate out all of the mineralization that was in there, other than what's clear. You can see right through it. And that's what's called selenite. Now, you know, the chemical composition allows it for you to see straight through it, like glass. You know, the truth is, I got so into this, I have so many clips that I just got totally lost. I know I've shown as much as I want to show. I know it might be this way and that way, randomly here and there. This is the tendon and the tendon fibers. And that's why you see these hexes all around the world. And they have to be separated from each other by a synovial sheath so they can all move around with each other. But they come down to almost nothing. And they are, these are a lot of the things I'm showing you. And I'm going to show you something like this that's protruding from, well, you're going to see it in a second, and then I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to do a very detailed video of all of these things, but really what I need is somebody to help, because I keep doing these things. I'm just wasting my time. I really am. I got to be honest with you. I was really considering just closing the whole case and just let people find whatever they find. But I feel like I would just be abandoning reality, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to keep bouncing around. But if somebody would come to my aid, I certainly would not be opposed to that. I don't want anything. I want nothing. Zero. I just want this to be understood and have people be able to speak about this without being laughed at. This is our reality, our truth, our history, and to me, it's my eternity. I'm looking for this to justify my feelings about, you know, life and about what might happen to me. I don't know what's going to happen to me. Do you? No, you don't. I don't care what you say. You have no clue. You may have full faith and assurity in the way you feel, but if you don't look and you don't search and you don't allow your mind to stretch to the places that it's got to stretch to, and I mean you got to stretch that puppy, then you just wasted your time, because you're just hoping for the best. Now, I'm still hoping for the best. I got to tell you, I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing anything right or wrong, but I can tell you what, I'm going to keep searching, and that's exactly what it was said in the ancient text. Search until you find, and when you find, you will be disturbed. And that's a fact. Now, I guess I'm going to leave it, maybe do another little clip here or there in this, and then, well, let me just show you what this looks like, and then I'm going to stop. All right, thank you, I love you, bye. Okay, I am so messed up in this one now that I could be anywhere and you could have seen anything in any order just the way it's going to be today. This I will show you later in one of my shots of these fingertips, and that'll be coming up whenever it comes up. And I got to get deep into this. This is only going to be part one. I have so much to this, so much. I have all the spectral analysis. I have everything, and I am going to present everything. All right. It's just going to take some time. It's just the way life is. It takes time. All right, this is the terrestrial, the one that came through space. And wherever you see a dark here, that is where the blanching effect, the blackness, where it cooked it off. But you can still see, well, here's a blood vessel right there. All right, you see, it's starting to cook off. If this was a heart and it was like solid blood, it would have turned into iron. And I have one here that is. And it has blood all over it. Now, here, hold on, I'm going to go on the side of it. And we're going to look at where the blood blew out on the side. I know it's dark in the probably. Can you see it? Get ready. You see that? That's where it blew out right on the side. You see, that's blood. That is blood, absolutely guaranteed. And if I put a little moisture on there, you're going to see that blood turn red. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. And you see this right here? That, my friend, hold on, I'm going to back this up so we can see that better. That is a biological structure. Hold on. All right, we're talking about biology in space. Well, let me tell you something. I can show you in space where one of these exists coming out of a comet. Now, if you look at this carefully and you know what you're looking at, you can see these little blood vessels and the anchor spots within each tendon fibril, which this is. Now, I'm going to put a little moisture on here. And then we're going to look at this as it dries out in a second, and you'll be able to see a lot of the articulation will come as it dries. I'm going to put a little, dry it up here a little bit. You see it here? Let me get my pointer. All right. You see these little blood vessel, tendon fibers? There's little bundles here and there. You see a bundle, 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 and the whole thing is wrapped in one bundle. That is exactly what happens with tendons. And I'm going to show you where they also exist. Now don't forget, that's this right here. That's the thing I say came from space. Now, if you can show me somebody that says it didn't, I'd like to hear why they say it's in this condition right here. I want to know why it got blanched like that, and it's not burnt, and why the blood, which I just showed you, and all the tissue, which I just showed you, the anatomy, which I showed you, exploded out of here, and why it didn't just run out, whoops, like this one did, which is a terrestrial counterpart of this one. They're identically the same. No difference whatsoever, except this exploded in the entry into our Earth's atmosphere. It must have been wet. Otherwise it would have just cooked. Now, they all appear to be wet, because here I have an iron lung. Now, I think I showed you this, and I will again, just to be sure that I don't make any mistakes. There's a little magnet. You see it? Can you see that? No. Okay, you see, it's an iron lung. And that came through space, and additionally to that, it has blood gushing out of it in many different locations because it was a lung. Now, we're going to look at it in a microscope. Get ready. Okay, my outstanding friends, do you see this? Just take a second to focus in on this. And then take a look at these little bundles. And then take a look at these straps, literal straps. You see them? That is Comet 67P. And it is in outer space, and I've examined it very closely. They sent a lander on here. These are the pictures right from the surface, or as they were there. Now, this is that same structure I just showed you, and these are tendon fibers. Everybody that's been following mud fossils knows that, and this is what they call an enthesis. It secures this bundle of muscle and tendon, and this is the red bloody dust. Now, and when it gases off, it gases off the exact same molecules of cooked meat, and they agree with that. And it's all organic. Yep, and all the astronauts say space smells like steak. So, I mean, if you can't see that, and if you're just unwilling to acknowledge even the ability to investigate it, then you're unworthy of calling yourself a scientist, in my view. It's just as simple as that.